We're going to go ahead and start by examining the database that we're all going to work with for the project for the 201 this term. It's called 201 Technology, and after you have downloaded it to your local machine, go ahead and open it up, and let's just explore what it is that we've got in front of us. So first thing I'd like you to notice, there's a security warning that there's content in the database that's been disabled. In all honesty, the content doesn't exist in this particular database. It's a good idea if you inherit a database that you're not familiar with to go ahead and just leave that content disabled. I'm going to close the warning though, because it's irritating to have it sitting up there at the top of the screen. If you have a database whose content you need to enable, you probably want to drop me an email and we'll chat about that before you actually go to the options and enable anything. So I'm going to close that little warning and get on with life in general. So the database that you've been given already contains some tables, a query, a form, and a report, just so we can have a look at it and see kind of what these objects are like. I'm going to go ahead and open up the table called cell phone, so I'll double click this. It opens up here on the right hand side. Now the first thing we have to get used to is the difference between the data sheet view, where I can actually see the individual records, and design view. So here in the data sheet view, I can see that I have a field, and that field is called, it looks like that field is called company serial number. Okay, and I have a field called model and a field called price, and so on and so forth. In fact, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, it looks like 9, maybe 10. Nope, 10 different fields. And then each one of these rows is a record about that particular field. So I have one record where the object's serial number is C123, and it gives me the model, and it gives me the price, tells me the operating system, what CPU. All of these are about one particular cell phone, as you may have guessed. So down here at the bottom, it tells me that there are 9 different records. As I scroll through the records here, it highlights the appropriate record on the screen. We rarely work with data in table view, just so you know. The tables are the foundation that hold all of the data, but we will use forms to enter data into the table, and reports to view data from the tables, and queries, of course, to ask questions of the tables and get the results we want to work with. So we're looking at the surface here, and there are just a couple of things that I might want to change. For example, the prices, the one that doesn't have a decimal, looks off because it's not lining up correctly. Anything else exciting over here? No, that's pretty much the only thing I see here that I'm uncomfortable with. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to step behind the scenes to design view. And you do that by up here on the ribbon. We're on the home tab. Far to the left, I've got a button that looks like a blue triangle, design triangle, and I can drop that down and choose design view, or I can just click on the blue triangle. It takes me behind the scenes. Now remember, the surface contains the actual data. Design view, instead, is where the person who first built the database decided which fields do I need. I need a field called company serial number, what data type it should be, and I can choose from text, memo, number. There are lots of different things here. If you're in doubt about what any of these does, the function 1 key on your keyboard will bring up a complete description of what data types are and what the options are for those. But in this case, I can see I've got a field that's text for the serial number, the model is text, the price is set as a number. I can change that to currency. The math behind the scenes is just a little bit different, but more importantly to me, the formatting is a little bit nicer. The OS is text, the CPU is text, processor speed is a number. Down here at the bottom, there are properties for each of these fields. So you can see that there are different properties depending on what kind of field you choose. And again, if you had questions about any of those, you could click in the appropriate place and hit the function 1 key, and it will give you in-depth details about all of these things. All right, so I'm going to go back to the surface by clicking on what used to be a blue triangle, and now it's a little spreadsheet looking thing. When I click on that, it tells me I should save the table. That's fine. I'm going to go ahead and save the table. If I've changed the property size to something that is smaller than any of the existing data, it might lose it. In this case, I know that I haven't, so I'm going to go ahead and choose yes. And on the surface now, I can see the the data once again. The price doesn't look like a currency to me. Did I not change price? I did. I changed price to a currency. Oh, format down here, I should also change it to a currency. And then back to the surface, and yes, I'm going to save, and that looks more like what I'd like it to look like. So we've looked at the table about cell phones both on the surface and in design view. I can close that particular table over here on the right hand side. Now I have another table here. It's called Cell Assign. I'm going to open that up, and I'm just going to explain to you, because you didn't build the table, what this is supposed to be about. This tells me that EMP01, and in fact, if I look down here at the very bottom of the screen, it tells me this is the unique company ID number given to each employee. Employee number 1 has C127, and down below this is the serial number assigned by the company to each piece of equipment. Check the property sticker on the device. And that they were assigned that on 6/6/2016. Now that's June the 6th. January, February, March, April, May, June the 6th. But this 7/1, is that July the 1st or January the 7th? It's hard for me to see. So once again, I'm going to go to Design View. Here's where those descriptions that pop up at the bottom of the screen come from. Somebody typing in a little bit more information so that the end user who's entering data can see what it's all about. I know that the date assigned and date returned are a little confusing if you're stationed with folks who do month day instead of day month. So I'm going to come down here to Format, and I'm going to choose a nice medium date. That makes it easier for me to see. And I'm going to do the same thing with the date returned. I'm going to change it to a medium date, and I'm going to save this. Now I should have mentioned before, the last table, one of the fields had this little key thing. As you remember, the primary key is the one field in each record that is unique. So we cannot have multiple records in the same table with a duplicate primary key. Only one hand receipt number is allowed for each record in this table. That came out badly. Only one receipt number is permitted to exist in the table. You cannot duplicate that particular field. That sounds a little bit closer to what I was trying to say. Let's go to the surface again. So basically here, the hand receipt number, I'm going to go ahead and add another employee, EMP05, and I'm going to give them cell number. Well, we haven't used 124, so I'm going to use 124, and they can go ahead, control semicolon, have that today. And they haven't returned it yet. I'm going to try, though, putting in 013585, the same hand receipt number as the employee before me. And when I hit enter, it says you may not do this because that would create duplicate values in the primary key. Oh, I understand then. That hand receipt 013585 is specifically about this particular transaction, giving C123 to employee number 4. So I had to use a different hand receipt number, and in fact these are controlled forms. They'll have an individual, a unique hand receipt number on each one, and that's good. Now the minute you move the focus off of a record, it saves the data in the table. You don't have to click save. You can just close the table and we can get on about our business. So we've got our two different tables. Now in real life, I would want to know, let me see, in that cell assign, what phone was C124? Well, you could open up table cell phones and look and see C124, oh look, it's a Blue Life 1X, it's unlocked, and that's the price, and so on and so forth. The data about the phone itself is kept in the table about cell phones, and the data about the table assign, that's because I made the columns wider here, is kept in the table about assign. How does Access know the two things are related? Well, I'm going to go up to Database Tools and click on the button that says Relationships. Now, somebody pre-assigned the relationship in this particular database. I did it. And they told the database the company serial number is the same thing as the property number. And they did that by picking it up and dragging and dropping it off on top of property number. But I wanted you to see that one cell phone may be assigned multiple times because a staff member can return it and it can then be issued to another staff member. So this one-to-many sign looks at the relationship between table cell phones and table cell assign. All right, so we've looked at tables both on the surface and in design view. We've looked at the relationships. This is again just dealing with a layout. The relationship is built whether I save it or not. Let's walk through the rest of our objects just so you get an idea of what's going on behind the scenes. So I've got a query here, and the query is called bargain cell. When I double click it, the data that appears on the screen gives me the model, operating system, and price of 3 different cell phones. Now, this once again is the data sheet view. It's showing me the records that meet the results of what I was looking for. If I go to design view, the query design shows me each of the fields that I'm looking at, which table they come from, whether or not this should show the results, and down below, criteria. In this particular case, I've asked it to show me only cell phones that are less than or equal to 500. In fact, I should just sort those things in price. So now when I look at the surface, the Blue Life was $149, the Axon is $399.98, and the Apple iPhone is $399.99. So that's my query about cell phones, both the results and in design view the setup for the actual question I'm trying to ask. You try and build queries in advance for all of the routine questions that are asked. This is a type almost of management information system that reports routine events. All right, so I'm going to close the query now. Do I want to save the changes to the design? That's where I told it to sort. Sure, why not? All right. So we know about tables. We've seen a query. Let's open up this form. Form cell phone allows me to view data that's in the table, and I can change data that's in the table. I made a mistake. That model, Apple iPhone 7 Plus, isn't really an Apple iPhone 7. It's an Apple iPhone 6. Now, the minute I move focus off of the record, it saves that result. Where did it save it? It saved it back in the table about cell phones. If I open up that table about cell phones, there it is. It changed it from a 7 to a 6. So a form is a window into the actual table so that you can add information, edit information, and so on and so forth. Using a form allows you to much better control what data is visible to the end users. You can hide data here. You can lock data so that they can view it and not edit particular fields. So for example, I might not want them to be able to change the CPU. So I can lock that particular field. And once again, this has not only a surface view, it has a design view as well. It's a little harder to read, but it's just showing you where the fields are arranged, the controls are arranged, and how they're going to look to the end user. And this allows me as well, this is where I would go to do things like lock particular fields. All right, so let's go back to the surface. You can look at the various records here. Some of these have been assigned, some have not. The Samsung Galaxy is as of yet unassigned, so it gives you an idea, the form window into the tables. I'm going to go ahead and close this form. And I'm going to open up the final object that we have. It's a report. When I open up the report cell options, reports, as you know, produce an item which is meant to be easy to read. It's kind of a summary of data. So this report shows me, grouped by operating system, all of the different phones which, for example, have an Android 6.0 operating system. Here's the price of each phone. It's sorted in order by price. Gives me the actual model of the phone, tells me what processor it has and how fast the processor is, what the screen size is, and the battery life. I can see down here as well the average price for an Android 6 phone. I can see the average battery life for an Android 6 phone. So a report puts all of this into a very easy to read format. And I can look at this thing in print preview, for example. This is what it's going to look like if you print it. Down at the very, very bottom, it'll give me a little footer and everything else. All right. and you can set these up to be printed or to be emailed or whatever it is that you like. So we know what a table is, we know what a query is, we know what a form is, we know what a report is. In the next video, we'll start to actually work with this by building tables and populating the tables, importing information, and working a little bit with tables.